Day 20 of the Diddy trial just finished. The judge started the day by denying the defense's mistrial motion, which I predicted yesterday. Even though Cassie's friend Brianna was a bad witness, her inconsistent testimony wasn't perjury and a reason to start the trial all over. Teddy Garagos cross-examined victim Jane the entire day and suggested that Jane chose to participate in the hotel nights. Jane would bathe and massage Diddy afterwards, and they'd watch his favorite show, Dateline, together. I've done Dateline several times and would love to be the legal analyst for the Diddy episode. For the first time, we heard the defense theory of the case. This wasn't a swinger's lifestyle at all. Diddy would direct Jane to role-play a cheating fantasy with male sex workers. Diddy is a cuckold, and he is aroused by watching his partner have sex with other men. A reporter in the courtroom text messaged me that this is the cuckold defense. Jen said she was okay with the hotel nights being recorded and she watched the videos with Diddy. Jane even got involved with Sly, one of the performers, because she and Diddy saw one of his pornos and Jane reached out to him directly to organize a freak-off. The defense got out testimony that Jane loved Diddy and they played audio messages about how much Jane had fun during the hotel night. The prosecution tried to recall their abuse expert, Don Hughes, but the judge said no. Diddy invested in Jane's dress and swimmer line and paid her more than $150,000. He even bought her a Van Cleef necklace and a Bottega Veneta bag. She now lives in a large house instead of a small apartment. Diddy explained that he lived a polyamorous lifestyle and was dating young Miami publicly at the same time, but Jane's relationship with him was private. Jane didn't like that. Diddy's lawyers suggested that he was a drug addict and was taking antidepressants, likely to play the sympathy card for the jury. The prosecution is arguing that Jane was coerced because of financial and emotional pressure. The defense is countering that this was all consensual and that Jane agreed to be the side chick and participate in the hotel night as part of a love contract. Diddy paid Jane's rent, and in exchange, he got to fulfill his fantasy of watching Jane cheat with other men. That's what this case comes down to. Coercion versus consent. Day 20 of the
Diddy update on my full YouTube. Diddy day 20.
1 o'clock. Court.
Do you still love him? That's what Diddy's attorney asked.
Well, Stephen,
Day 22 of Diddy's trial and the
all right, guys, so let's really quick go over.
It is Tuesday, day 20 in the Diddy trial, and already this morning we've got a lot going on. First thing this morning, the judge denied the defense's second request for mistrial. Also, juror number 6 has been stricken from the trial. It's under seal, so we don't know why. Obviously, they'll just fill that juror's space with one of the alternate jurors. Back on the stand this morning is Jane, and she is up for cross-examination. Defense attorney asked her about when Homeland Security arrived at her home, how she wanted nothing to do with them. She had a choice to speak to them and instead chose to get an attorney paid for by Sean. When Jane was asked if she loves Sean now, she said she does. She told the court that she felt trusted by Sean in those vulnerable moments, saying that she was breaking her own boundaries to make him feel loved, even if it became hard for her. She said she fell in love with Sean and didn't understand what conditions that would come with. He introduced me to this lifestyle under a lot of emotional pressure. I was so hooked from the beginning on the love and affection, I fell in love with him and didn't understand the terms of the relationship. She came to understand that having freak-offs was part of the deal. It was along the lines of love and pressure to do all the things he desired and wanted to fulfill my duties as his girlfriend. Jane told the court that Sean had a big personality and was very sure of himself. She said that he offered highly motivational speeches to encourage her, which helped her feel more confident. She said she used to be shy and still struggles with self-esteem issues. Jane said that Sean introduced her to gospel music and had insightful conversations about his spirituality, a really good perspective on a lot of things. He had a favorite pastor and he would put sermons on TV we would watch together. I asked her how much Sean spent supporting her financially during their relationship, around $150,000. They asked her if she gravitated towards providers. She responded she usually wants a partner and a provider. How much money did she make before she met Sean? Around $50,000 as an influencer and receiving child support. They brought up how Sean had given her the nickname Crack Pipe. They read text messages and played a voicemail where he's saying, "Get your rest, you're the crack pipe, that's my name for you, crack pipe. We had a great time together." This was after their Turks and Caicos trip. Also, in this audio recording, he mentions the love contract between the two of them. They asked her if she thought there was ever a time where Sean would not pay rent for her. She said there were times that I definitely felt that he would do that, and he used to kind of use it as like a little tool or a reminder. She said early in the relationship, they had conversations where Sean said he leads a polyamorous dating lifestyle. She said she didn't mind at first, but as she was getting deeper feelings for Sean, I was feeling my man and wanted him to be mine. Jane said she was concerned about Sean's rug use during their trip to Turks and Caicos. She felt like he was jaundiced, graying gums, and shaking hands. She at one point wanted him to go to a rehab clinic in Thailand. And when defense attorney asked Jane if she believed that he was an addict, she said, "I just felt like he was overdoing the partying." The defense asked her if she had enjoyed hotel nights. She says, "During hotel nights, the portion of me and him, yes, I loved that part. He's the most affectionate during these nights, and generally, he's not affectionate." Jane confirmed that she was okay with the hotel nights being filmed because Sean had told her the videos were just for the two of them. Defense attorney says, "You put on a good show for him in these videos because you knew he would watch them back." "Yes," Jane responded. The defense read messages between Jane and Christina Karam, Diddy's chief of staff, when she asked her to bring rugs to Miami for him. They pointed out how in these text messages it didn't say that, but Jane said that she spoke to Christina on the phone, and that's when she told her, "Go ahead and bring them. I do it all the time." Jane testified that her and Christina Karam were not close, and she said that Christina didn't like her. At this point, they break for lunch. I'll be back after court with the afternoon recap. It is Tuesday. It is Tuesday, Diddy trial day 20. This is the recap after the lunch break. Jane is back on the stand. The defense is going over text messages and voice notes that Jane sent to Sean where she engaged in fantasy talk that appeared to show her willingness for sexually explicit activities. Some of these messages include Jane describing what she would like to do to specific sex workers who were hired for hotel nights. At one point, Jane and Tenny Garagos, Sean's attorney, kind of get into it back and forth. Garagos insinuated that Jane was consensually having sex with other men and gladly accepting designer bags. She said, "No, I got trauma." Garagos reminded Jane at this point that Sean gifted her a Van Cleef necklace and a Bottega bag. Jane confirmed, and Garagos asked, "Well, how much do Bottega bags cost?" Jane says, "How much does my body cost?" The judge chimes in and tells Jane to just answer the question that's being asked. Garagos asks again, "How much is a Bottega bag?" Jane said they range from $1,500 to $5,000. When asked, Jane said she didn't know how much a Chanel bag cost. And then Jane asks for a break. After she had asked for a break, they later dismissed the jury. So they finished at 3 o'clock today. Yesterday, they went till 5. They did say that court will not begin until 1 p.m. tomorrow. So we have the morning off. It is Tuesday, Diddy trial day 20. This is the recap after the lunch break. Jane is back on the stand.
Here's what happened on day 21 of the Diddy trial. The big news of the day is that the judge is considering removing Juror 6 for lack of candor. That means he lied in layman's terms. Judge Subramanian will rule tomorrow. The request was made by the prosecution, and the defense is trying to keep him on. For what it's worth, Juror 6 is a black male and a 90s hip-hop fan. The defense continued its cross-examination of victim Jane to argue that she was jealous of Diddy's other girlfriend Gina, and that this wasn't rape, but resent or regret. Jane used the hotel night card, which was basically sex with other men, to get Diddy to leave other women and spend time with her. There were times when Jane said she wasn't in the mood for a hotel night, and Diddy didn't push her. There were text messages where Jane was choosing between entertainers, invited them on trips, and in which she said a hotel night was amazing. That's evidence of choice and consent. There were also many text messages where Jane said she loved Diddy. Even though I believe that this is consistent with the psychology of abuse, that is one of the biggest challenges in the case. If Jane was really sexually assaulted or trafficked, why did she keep going back to her abuser? That's what the defense argued in the Harvey Weinstein case with some success. Jane is expected to finish her testimony tomorrow. Here's what happened on day
Was back on the stand late this afternoon, and they started off by talking about text messages from December of 2021 between her and a male entertainer. It was after a hotel night where she said it was an intense night, and he had texted her saying, "You were talking so dirty to me, I love it." He then says that after New Year's, she saw on social media that Diddy had taken a vacation with Gina. She sent him a message on January of 2022 being really upset, saying, "You have me feeling so taken advantage of and regretting everything." She also mentioned to him that they had an amazing New Year's week together. She even said that after seeing that post, she even considered breaking up with Diddy. They then show text messages between her and the male entertainer where he tells her he'll be in LA and he'll stay if she wants to see him. She responds saying, "It's my birthday weekend and you don't show me no love." Then she requested a personal video and said that same night she ended up seeing an Italian entertainer. And this was around the time where Diddy had taken up with Young Miami. Now remember, she had testified about this, how she spent her birthday doing hotel nights with Diddy, and then for Young Miami's birthday, he went and took her on vacation. Lee Garagos then asks her if she had asked Diddy to come home from vacation, and she said, "I did more than ask. I made him come home a day early." He then reads her text message to Diddy at that time where she said, "If you don't come here now, we're not going to do anything that you want to do." He was then asked, "Did you tell Sean that he wouldn't be having a Valentine's Day party with you?" And she says, "Yes, that was the first time I pulled that card." A hotel night card? And she said, "Yes." She then confirmed when Diddy came back early, she did in fact plan a hotel night for Valentine's Day with him. She said she prepared the room, she decorated it with rose petals, and planned to have 2 entertainers there at once. And she confirmed yes, it was her idea, and no, she had never done that before. They then talk about text messages from March of 2022 where she says Diddy had made her delete a photo she posted that was just food, but it was obvious that they were together. She said she then saw that Gina had posted something where she was wearing a matching bracelet and necklace set, which was similar to what Diddy had gotten her, and she was upset. In the messages, "I told him to make Gina delete her post. I said he was giving me anxiety. To see these things were deeply hurtful to me." She said they went about 2 months in the spring of 2022 not having hotel nights, even though we still spent time together. Then on June 19th of that year, Diddy had asked for another hotel night. She responded saying, "Not really in the mood for that part, don't want to make you mad." He responded saying, "All good," and then suggested role-playing scenarios instead. She said Diddy ended up suggesting having a movie night, which we already know what that means. They read another text message from July of 2022 where he says, "Call Italian or Paul if free." Now, when he said call the Italian, that was one text message, and then the next one was Paul, and she had hearted the one with Paul and confirmed it. She was asked, "He gave you a choice and you chose it, right?" And she said yes. And in order to prepare for this night, she said she went and got shoes, shorts, maybe whipped, and even admitted to getting rhino pills. The shorts and the pills were for the entertainers, not for her. She said she didn't like the shorts that they were in, so she brought her own. Next night, he asks if she wants to have dinner at 9 and tells her to bring the freak bag just in case. They show another text message where Diddy asks her, "Did you want to hit Italian?" And she says, "Yes, but I didn't want to." And says to her, "Paul is all we need." And she says, "LOL, I'll go to the store unless you get a head start," which she explained meant getting a head start going to the hotel. She continues to get questioned more about these nights and asked if she had a great time on her birthday, and she said, "I had an okay time." They show a text message where she said, "Is Nobu the only place? How about something outside of the hotel?" And she said, "He conveniently put me in a hotel with Nobu. I suggested Poppy's Steaks." Teeny Garagos says, that's a nice restaurant in Miami, and she said, so I've heard. They then showed the jury a photo that she had taken after Diddy had given her a Van Cleef necklace, and she was smiling in the photo wearing the necklace. She explained that she was taking substances, so any type of affection from Diddy made her smile. That same night, she said it was a hotel night, and it was with her, Diddy, and 3 other men. Later texted Diddy, I loved and appreciated every detail you put into my birthday, and she clarified to the court, I was referring to the gifts and time with Sean. Garagos says to her, you sent him photos of your guys in the hotel room? Yes. You didn't tell him you didn't like it until you saw him with Carisha and Turks, right? Yes, it was very hurtful after enduring what I endured. Now remember how she had stopped talking to Diddy for I think about 2 weeks and she flew off to Paris by herself? Well, she was asked about that too. I was heartbroken. I flew to Paris Fashion Week. You enjoyed it? Yes. We then read a text message from Diddy to her from March of 2023 where he says, sorry I called you the B word. I deserve this. Love. He then writes to you, do you want to come to Turks? And she says, yes. You send him a heart emoji and wrote, what we have is special, right? Yes. Budget for your trip was $100,000? Yes. He spent 55. I don't know. She was then asked if Diddy had asked her if he could bring Dawn, and she said, given the situation, I said yes. You said if you'd known Paul would be there, you wouldn't have gone to Turks. And she said, I would not have. She was then asked if she had invited Sly to come, and she said yes. Now remember, this was when they went to Turks and she fought with Diddy in front of Dawn and walked out crying. And to make it up because Diddy got mad at her, she called Sly and asked him to come. You were happy Sean gave you diamonds? I thought it was sweet. You were glad to get diamonds. I just wanted Sean. She was then asked, do you remember telling Paul that you'd let Sean go too far and it was your fault? She says yes, and this is where they stopped for a break. Indo was back on the stand.
Diddy trial, day 21, Jane is on the stand. Garago. Diddy trial, day 21, Jane is going to take the stand. Now, I was trying to do something.
So for today, I believe this is day 21. It's easy to lose count when these days are like happening so fast and quickly. But I believe it's day 21. Lost count. So today, Jane Doe, she's been doing her testimony for the prosecution. Today, she actually had the defense team cross-examine her. It was a lot of text messages back and forth between her and Diddy. A lot of smexting texts, a lot of detailed information that I can't really say on here, but a lot of like smexmal kind of conversations between the two of them. And they definitely are trying to portray her differently than the prosecution as far as her testimony through the prosecution. They're trying to, kind of revamp that. And they're trying to let her be known that she was the one that wanted these freak to the offs and that she's the one that was actually helped planning these freak to the offs. And that she was into it and wanted it, and using her text messages between her and Diddy as a way of saying, hey, she's not actually portrayed. This is really how she was. This is the messages that she was sending to him, etc. So for today,
I'm not a lawyer, but it's day 22 of Diddy's federal trial, and it's supposed to be the last day of testimony from witness Jane Doe. So let's get into it. The day actually starts off with Diddy's attorneys arguing to reveal the names of the rapper couple that Jane went on a trip with in January of 2024. But the prosecutors say the defense just wants to reveal these names for harassment and intimidation purposes. After some back and forth between the judge and the attorneys, the judge rules that the names cannot be revealed because they are not connected to any of the trafficking charges. And with that, Jane takes the stand, and very quickly into the day, the defense attorney starts asking about that January 2024 trip to Vegas. Attorney Penny Garagos asked Jane if the rapper that was on this trip, they traveled there on his private jet, is an icon in the music industry and very close to Diddy, and Jane says yes. She also confirms that this trip to Vegas was for the birthday of that rapper's girlfriend or wife. In talking more about this trip, Jane says that she was a little bit surprised to see Antoine, the entertainer that she and Diddy used, at this birthday celebration for the rapper's significant other. But Jane also says that Antoine had previously told her and Diddy that he traveled and spent time with the rapper and the rapper's significant other. According to Jane, at this birthday celebration, the rapper flirted with her from afar, telling her he thought she was beautiful and always wanted to blank her. Jane also admits to flashing the room, her chest, and says that it was a in-the-moment thing. According to Jane, during that trip, the rapper and his partner also asked her if she knew of anyone else in the lifestyle, and so she reached out to Cabral because, according to her, she thought he would be a safe person to recommend to them, but she also says that she doesn't know how or why they asked her. Maybe they just assumed her and Diddy were into that or picked it up from her energy. From there, the defense attorney moved on to the time period after Cassie's lawsuit, in which Jane says that Diddy was acting more loving to her and wanted to spend more quality time after that lawsuit came out. Jane says that during that time period, she felt closer to Diddy, and she says that her love for him grew stronger. Now, jumping into the night that Diddy and Jane got into that physical altercation on June 18th of 2024, Jane testified that the woman they were arguing over, the woman she says was 25 to 27 years younger than Diddy, and she claims that he started talking to that woman before the woman was 21. Jane says that woman lives in Miami, which was upsetting to her because they were able to spend so much time together. The defense attorney has her go back through the events of that night, and Jane acknowledges that after she left the house for about 2 hours, when she came back, she was still upset about everything, and so she continued to call Diddy names and bring up the younger woman. After the two of them have this altercation and she gets in the shower, she said she was still calling him names, and at one point she recalls Diddy saying to her, quote, "We've never fought like this before, and now the lawsuit comes out and you're attacking me." But again, according to Jane, she said she had reached a breaking point in the relationship. During her cross-examination, Jane also retells the point of that night in which she says Diddy offered her a pill, she said she didn't want it, and then according to her, he got in her face and said, "Is this coercion?" When the night ended, Jane said that her and Diddy did not have intercourse, which according to her was unusual for how these nights typically ended. Now, Jane's cross-examination wrapped up with her talking about what happened after that June night. She said the two of them spent a couple days together doing some narcotics and having intercourse, but also having a breakup conversation that lasted about 8 or 9 hours. In the days and months following, the two of them continued going back and forth about their relationship, and in one text, Jane said, "My dumb self thought if I had more intercourse and did more hotels, I'd finally get a trip." Towards the end of that month, Jane says she flew to Miami to go see Diddy, and on direct, she testified that at one point during that Miami trip, she told Diddy she was tired, and he sprayed water in her face from a water bottle. Penny Garagos asked Jane if the first time she told prosecutors this water bottle story was on June 1st, and Jane says yes. She says it was a, quote, new memory. And then the last line of questioning that was asked had to do with the time shortly before Diddy was arrested. Jane said the two of them had spoken about seeing a therapist. She said the two of them loved each other so much, but all this toxic stuff was still coming up. And with that, cross-examination of Jane Doe ends. But yes, the government does recross. I'm not a lawyer, but let's get into the final part of Jane Doe's testimony from day 22 of Diddy's federal criminal trial. And actually, before I jump into it, I need to say that I went back through the transcripts, and it looks like this rapper couple from this Las Vegas trip, only the man is a rapper. His partner, the woman who was being celebrated for that birthday weekend, doesn't seem like Jane said the girlfriend or partner of this rapper is also a rapper. It's just the man himself is a rapper and an icon in the industry, and they were in Vegas to celebrate his girlfriend or wife's birthday. I had to go back to the transcript.
So they
because I
saying this
wanted to clear
Kanye
this
West
up.
and his
Okay, so
girlfriend.
after the cross-examination of Jane, the government gets up to do redirect, and a lot of it was kind of repetitive, so I'm just going to cover a few highlights. The first is that Prosecutor Comey starts off this redirect referencing the text exchange from June of 2022 in which Diddy asked Jane what she was in the mood for, and then he told her to plan something for him. And she responded by saying, "I know what you want, but not really in the mood for that part." So to follow up on this text exchange, Prosecutor Comey shows Jane a text message that Diddy sent about an hour after their conversation, and it was a message she sent to Paul, the entertainer. In this message, Diddy says, quote, "I'm gonna need you to persuade her." Oh. Jane testifies that she had no idea about this message. Prosecutor Comey then moves on to asking Jane about putting on a show during these hotel nights. And to this, Jane says that she would at times fake reaching her peak to make sure she was putting on a good show for Diddy. And she also says that sometimes she would send entertainers positive messages after these nights to make them feel good and to make sure they didn't feel used. From there, the prosecutor revisits the physical altercation between Jane and Diddy on June 18th. And when asked, Jane describes Diddy's demeanor as evil. The prosecutor asked Jane if she would give back all the money and gifts she's received from Diddy if it meant that she never had to have hotel nights. And Jane replied, yes. She testified that she has no financial stake in the outcome of this trial and that she gets no money from testifying. She says she's on the stand because she was subpoenaed. And from there, defense attorney Tinny Garagos gets back up to do a recross. And in seeming to address that comment about if she would give all the money back if it meant no hotel nights, Tinny Garagos asked Jane, "You were not willing to give up your home, right?" That was a good follow-up. Jane answers, "That's where me and my child live." That's a very hard question to answer. Tinny Garagos responds, "You wanted to stay in the home you and your child lived in." Jane says, "I was in the position." That's a very hard question. Tinny Garagos also presses Jane about the June 18, 2024 incident, and she suggests that Jane did know Antoine the entertainer was coming to her house that night. She tells Jane if she didn't want Antoine to come over, when she got in her car to go get him from the gate, she could have just kept driving out of the neighborhood. And to this, Jane acknowledges that she never told Antoine she didn't want him to come over, and she also never told him she didn't want to participate in intercourse with him that night. Garagos also has Jane confirm that when this incident happened, she was aware that Diddy was being investigated by the feds, and Jane confirms she was aware. And then Garagos revisits Jane's finances once again. Jane confirms that she gets about $5,000 from her child's father, who Garagos describes as a, quote, wealthy individual, and Jane gets about $10,000 a month from OnlyFans, with the most she's ever made being about $50,000 in 1 month. So Garagos suggests to Jane that she can afford to pay her own rent, but Jane says she's still catching up on 3 years of debt. When Garagos then brings up that Diddy wired her over $150,000 over the course of their relationship, Jane says, quote, "Is that all I'm worth in 3 years?" Garagos says, "Did you want more than that?" To which Jane says, "Do you think I'm worth more than that?" And then Garagos replies, "I'm asking you if you want more than that." And then Jane eventually says, "No." One of the last questions that Tinny Garagos asked Jane before she leaves the stand is if Diddy would tell her throughout the relationship that they could break up if she wanted. And to this, Jane says, just because he said that, that's not what he meant. She then also acknowledged that she did not want to break up with him. And with that, after about 5 days of testimony, Jane I'm not a lawyer, but it's day 22 of Diddy's federal.
So it looks like Diddy wasn't the only famous rapper that was hosting these freak-offs. His ex-girlfriend just spent 6 long days testifying, dropping some heavy details, and another famous rapper just got brought into the story. So this was Diddy's last girlfriend before he got arrested. She's a social media influencer, but she's testifying anonymously under the name Jane. The past 6 days she was talking about freak-offs and she was talking about getting beat, and she just wrapped up the last day on the stand. But she brought in a new twist that involved a very famous rapper. Jane testified that in January 2024, she was invited to a wild Las Vegas birthday party for this mystery rapper's girlfriend. She flew there on the rapper's private jet, so he has a private jet, along with a big group of people. The night started off with everyone attending a play, then moved to a fancy dinner, followed by a strip club, and finally an after party inside a hotel suite, and that's where things got wild. At the after party, Jane says that she witnessed one of the male escorts that she and Diddy used for their freak-offs. It was a man named Antoine, and he was getting intimate with another woman while the rapper, his girlfriend, and a small group of others just stood watching. She also testified that the rapper, who is close to Diddy both personally and professionally, pulled her aside during the night and said, "I've always had a crush on you," talking to Jane. In court, Jane confirmed that this rapper is an icon in the music industry. And after Diddy found out she attended this party, Jane says he became more furious and accused her of going to another man's freak-off, which triggered more fights between them. She also revealed that this rapper and his girlfriend were into a similar sexual lifestyle as Diddy, and even asked if she could connect them with more escorts like the one that she and Diddy used. During the trial, Diddy's lawyers tried to force Jane to say the name in court, but the judge ruled against it, saying exposing his identity would only be used to harass the witness, so for now the name is sealed. So it looks like Diddy wasn't the only famous rapper that was hosting these freak-offs.
So do y'all think it's Jay-Z and Beyonce? Or do you think it's Kanye West?
Diddy trial day 22.
Okay, you guys, quick update on the Diddy trial for those who still care. So this morning, court started late. Both sides went
Oh, it's
into
Kanye
the
West, they
judges'
saying.
chambers to discuss a matter before they brought Jane Doe back out to finish her testimony for this morning. It was a lot of speculation on what was going on, why were they in there arguing, what was the holdup, why was Jane Doe back there, why was her attorney back there with her? So come to find out, the prosecution side was trying to keep a person's name redacted in the testimony. She is testifying that she went to a hotel party in Vegas. She flew out on a private jet of a redacted rapper for his wife/girlfriend's birthday. And while they were out at the party in the hotel room in Vegas, they were engaging in voyeurism. But the issue was that one of the entertainers that was there partaking in the voyeurism, who was actually doing the act, was one of the entertainers that her and Diddy would use in their FOs. So what the defense was arguing is that they wanted to release the name of the rapper that was friends with Diddy and was an iconic rapper who flew Jane Doe out to Vegas on his private plane. Or it could have been a rented private plane, who knows? And it states, Combs was not aware of the trip because they were on a break, Jane said. The rapper was close with Combs, she added. Antoine, a worker who had done hotel nights with Jane and Combs, was at the birthday dinner. Jane testified later another had sex with another woman while several people watched, she said. So basically what the issue is, pretty much what I said yesterday, Jane Doe and the actual defense attorney, who is Diddy's defense attorney, was dropping names all day yesterday. They dropped Young Miami's name, they dropped another person's name, and so today, obviously, that rapper may or may not have gotten an attorney and argued that his name should not be dropped during the trial. His wife's name, girlfriend, or whoever should not be named during the trial. I felt that it was unfair that Young Miami's name was being dropped. Now, if Jane Doe didn't want her name being exposed, why are you dropping Young Miami's name? It just didn't make sense to me. But that's the update, and that's what they're cross-examining her about now. Who is the rapper that was at this hotel party that she attended that Diddy actually didn't know about? And how does this tie into the trial? Well, it basically shows that she was a willing participant in these FOs because she went in and participated in one all by herself without even telling Diddy. Let me know what y'all think so far in the comments, and I'll be...
It's day 22 of Diddy's trial, and his team wanted the rapper that was in the Vegas hotel room to be named in open court. Earlier this morning, the judge had a private meeting in his roving room with one of Diddy's attorneys, one of the prosecutors, and Jane Doe's attorney. The meeting had gone on for 40 minutes with attorneys going in and out of the room, and at one point it said that Diddy was animated, visibly upset, tapping his fingers like he was counting out talking points. And when the meeting was over, it was said that prosecutor Maureen Comey walked out of the roving room towards her team, and she was smiling and just shrugged. Obviously, the meeting was private. It was not docketed publicly, which has inner city press really upset. But we got more information about what it was that they were talking about once the meeting was over. See, when the judge got back on the stand, he asked Mark Agnifilo if he was ready to begin, and Mark Agnifilo told him, "We had this discussion in the back. Mr. Combs was not present. I would like to lodge this objection. We litigated this over pseudonyms." So now we know that the meeting was about pseudonyms. And the judge says, "Would you like me to clear up the courtroom?" And he said, "No need. I will conform my comments in an open court. A reason trials and names are public is so people who were there can come forward. We objected to a pseudonym with Mia, now this. Now remember, Jane Doe had testified that on January of 2024, she flew out to Vegas with a rapper on his plane, and there was an incident that happened with one of the male escorts, and they were all watching. There were people saying, well, who was the rapper? Who was there that day in Vegas? And Mark Agnifilo is arguing that the identities of those present at the January 2024 hotel room encounter should be revealed at trial. Prosecutor Maureen Comey argued that naming the individuals would be an attempt to harass and intimidate Jane. Ultimately, the judge ruled that whatever happened on January of 2024 has nothing to do with the trafficking allegations, and therefore the names will not be made public. And now 2 hours after Jane Doe was supposed to take the stand, she is finally up there, and I will let you guys know how cross-examination ends. It's day 22 of Diddy's trial, and his team wanted the rapper that was in the Vegas hotel room to be Diddy's attorney is clearly playing dirty after the judge ruled that the rapper's name that was in Vegas with Jane Doe cannot be made public. They decided to drop clues that I feel like is pretty obvious. Cross-examination started off where Teeny Garagos asked Jane Doe about her emotional and mental state when Cassie's lawsuit went public. He said, another woman had the same experiences I had. I put that energy on Sean and he was already down. Everything felt heavy. He then played a voice note Diddy sent her where he says, I don't want to be in a relationship like this. I don't want to make anyone feel like this. Let's end this cycle so you don't feel like I wasted your life. Jane admitted that she had told Diddy that she felt like his lover and just wanted to be held and cuddled, not used. Then read a text message she sent to Diddy saying, I tolerated. I took on a lot in those rooms. Please don't discredit me. And he wrote, never discredit you. Was then asked if she told Diddy she wanted $450,000, $100K for every year wasted with him. She said yes. You said you were thinking of hurting yourself, and he said, don't. He cared, and she said, I don't know about that. They then clearly tried to paint a picture of Jane Doe because they say, Sean still paid your rent? Yes. The $9,000 from Bear, you had known him from modeling days? Yes. Did you have to do any work for the $9,000? No. That's when they bring up the rapper, and she says, the rapper you mentioned, he was close with Mr. Combs? Yes. Now it's clear the jury found out who the rapper was because they played a video with no sound. The rest of the courtroom can't see it, and she was asked, this rapper, they would record together. He's also an icon in the music industry? He said yes. And then they say, you went to the birthday with the rapper's wife or girlfriend? Do you know Anton traveled with them? Yes. She was then asked how many people were in the room when you guys were watching Anton having relations with another woman, and she said about 7 or 8. Remember, she had testified with the prosecutor that she and this rapper are just friends. It's platonic, but she was asked, the rapper was flirting with you? Yes. You flashed to the room? Who asked you to? No one. It just happened in the moment. Then gets asked, what did the rapper say to you? And she says that he always wanted to have relations with me. He had a crush on you? Yes. We had only heard about Anton during this Vegas trip, but they asked her, how did you bring up Sly? Says that the rapper or his girlfriend/wife asked if I knew anyone else in the lifestyle. I said yes at the time. I thought Sly was a safe and confidential person. Because remember, Sly was the one that tried to extort her. As for the rapper and his wife, yes. How did they know to ask you? She says maybe they just picked up the energy or heard that Sean and I were into that lifestyle. Then asked her about the grandiose birthday that Diddy had thrown for her in Miami. Said there were candles lined on the walkway, everything was pink and silver, and there was a 5-course dinner all for her. And she tells the jury it was everything I wanted from a lover. He said there were no substances during dinner, but later that night they both took pills and he brought Dawn, and she says, I felt like this was going to be a forever thing. The relations with entertainers wasn't going away. Said after Cassie's lawsuit came out, she noticed changes in Diddy where he had told her, I'm single, I'm polyamorous, and they asked, did that hurt you? And she said yes. Teeny then asks her, but after the lawsuit, he went to saying, we are in a relationship, you are my girlfriend, and that meant a lot to you. And she said it did. I'm confused why Teeny Garagos would ask that, because doesn't that prove that he was just using her because he realized that this was about to be his downfall? But I digress. She was then asked when she saw the hotel video with Cassie, it made her sick, and that wasn't the man she knew, right? And she confirmed correct. Now trying to paint the picture that the night that Diddy went violent with her was because of substances, because they talk about the fact that she set up the room with his assistant Jonathan. She had a big bottle of champagne and they had been drinking. It's 8:30 p.m. Now they're doing X. An hour later, you were fighting, right? Yes. Testified that you called him a PDF file even though you knew she was not underage, and she says, right. You pushed his head into the counter. I did. You had never had a physical altercation with him, right? I had not. You pushed medium hard? Yes. Threw candles at him? Yes. I then ask about the locks on the door, saying it was a button, right? And she says yes, and they say, so he did not force a physical lock, but a button lock, right? He still broke down like 4 doors. Asked what was he saying to her, she said that I'm crazy and a lot of yelling. He even asks her if she takes working out seriously. She says yes, and she says, so when you went into the closet, you put on a dress and not activewear. Why? Is that really a question? Got a man breaking down doors coming after me, and I'm gonna sit there and put on tight leggings and a top, or I'm just gonna throw on a dress. Make it make sense. Ask her after the altercation, you ran and hid behind a wall. Where was your phone? Back at the house. You went back, you saw Diddy, and she says he was out on the street. This had been hours, and she said it had. We're angry and screaming, calling him a PDF file, and she said, I called him a monster. He didn't kick you again. He didn't. You punched him in the back of his head, and he punched you. He punched me twice. And now took a lunch break. Jane Doe was supposed to end this morning, but she's obviously gonna get dragged into the afternoon, but I will keep you guys updated. Diddy's attorney is clearly playing dirty after the judge ruled that the rap Jane Doe is officially done with cross-examination and they're about to start redirect. So let's talk about what else was brought up after the lunch break. Teeny Garagos picks up right where she left off before the lunch break, which was the fight that happened on June 18th of 2024. And she confirmed Diddy dragged her by her hair while yelling at her, you're trying to get me to never see my kids again. She said that during this, she was the one that grabbed his phone to call the other woman because remember, she had accused him of taking a woman on his family trip to Utah. He asked the other woman, did you go to the Grand Canyon with him? I'm asking you woman to woman. And the woman responded saying, you're worrying about the wrong things, woman to woman. He confirmed that's when she said, he's beating my ASS, and he took the phone and hung up. She also confirmed that the woman called multiple times and she was asked, did she call you the B word? Yes. Did you talk about her previous relationships? Maybe. Remember, she had testified with the prosecutor that afterwards she went into the shower and that's when Diddy came up to her and he slapped her. So she was asked, did you call him a son of a B? And she said, just a B. And that's when he slapped her. Remember, this is when Diddy tells her to put on her clothes and he takes her phone to message Anton, and that's how he finds out about the rapper and Vegas. Confirmed that Anton came over, she drove to the gate to bring him in, and they had done champagne and tequila, but no drugs. Said at this point she had gone into the bedroom, she told Diddy about Vegas, but she did not tell him who the rapper was. When asked if she had told Diddy that on the Vegas trip she had flashed herself to the room, she said not yet. She was also asked if she told Diddy that she referred Sly to that rapper, and she said not yet. She then gets asked, did Mr. Combs tell you how could you do another man's freak off? And she said yes, he yelled that. That's when Diddy allegedly told her go out and F Anton, and then she said no, so he pushed the pill in my face. She was asked, but you didn't have relations with Anton, and she said not that kind. When asked if she had done this, she said yes. She was asked if after Anton left, Diddy confronted her again saying, I can't believe you went to another man's freak off. She said yes. She also testified that this was the first time that after freak off, her and Diddy didn't have an intimate night together. Days later, they met again, and she testified that Diddy and her talked for 8 to 9 hours, and it was about breaking up. She then talks about the fact that she had later seen that Diddy had gone to Wyoming with another woman while she was at home recovering from a black eye. Said that's when I knew I was done, and she blocked him and his circle until she found out that his mom got sick. Video then gets played for the jury, but we obviously don't know what was in the video. But Diddy then says to her, I'm not going to belittle myself for someone named Bear or my rapper friend. Then says to her, sorry I didn't take you on trips. I was tripping. The baby daddy, you and KK would have talked yourself into paranoia. She then acknowledged OnlyFans, earning well, and wondered if her low maintenance attitude is what caused her to lose Diddy's affection, saying, Did the other girls pressure you more for trips and I didn't? Diddy says to her, that was my friend. I was okay where we should stop. Her response was, we broke up and I went to one birthday party, not with the rapper, but with my friend. She also said, I don't even have anything postable, and they asked if she meant Instagram, and she said yes. They then read text messages from her where she tells Diddy, I just wanted to travel with you. She sends a clown emoji and says, if I F more, I could have gone on trips. They then talk about the fact that she went to Miami and stayed at the Four Seasons, and she was the one that chose that hotel. She took substances, she danced, she laughed, she had a good time, and she finally felt like she was getting the princess treatment. She was asked if she texted Diddy saying, I miss Paul, which is one of the male entertainers, and she said, I had taken X, but I did miss Paul. She then called Paul, who came in a few days, and they stayed at 2-Star, and she said yes. Teeny Garagos asked, and it felt good, a love fest, and she said yes. They then asked her about a new memory she brought up to the prosecutors on June 1st of this year where Diddy had splashed her with water, and she said yes. She was then asked why she would call herself Kobe, and she said, because I'm the best. Why was Diddy Jordan? Because he's the best. They read a text message where she says, you are definitely my Michael Jordan, and I am Kobe. Detox weekend. She also says to him, good morning, handsome, and he says, can you please find a therapist? And she says, yes, we loved each other, but there was toxic stuff. But it ended on a positive note? Yes, it did. No further questions. Redirect has not started yet, but once they finish, I will let you guys know what was said. Doe is officially done on the stand, and prosecutors did redirect, Diddy's attorneys did re-cross-examination, and then there was one final question with the prosecutor. Those of you who don't know, Paul, the male entertainer, was also Diddy's personal trainer, and the prosecutor showed Jane Doe a text message from June of 2022 where Diddy texted him saying, I'm gonna need you to persuade her. And asked if she had ever seen that text message before, she said no. So Diddy texted Paul telling him to persuade Jane Doe, and she had no idea that was happening. And Paul was texting her, and she responded to Paul saying, I'm not a robot, just a mix of tired, hungry, and in pain. These text messages happened after Jane Doe had gotten upset at Diddy in front of Paul, and she went to text him to apologize, but she said to him, to insult me about the bracelet, to make me perform, it crushed me. She also tells Paul, in that room, I felt like brought up once again how on May of 2021, she had told Diddy she wanted these entertainers to use protection and how he had resisted, but eventually agreed. She also told the jury that Diddy had mocked her, and when asked if she wanted to have relations with Sly, she said no. And asked if she ever faked it, she said yes, because she was putting on a show. Prosecutors reminded the jury that Diddy did threaten her to release the tapes, and it happened on December of 2023, and that's when she reached out to KK. She was asked how she would avoid hotel nights, and she said she would change the subject, make sighing sounds, and even say she was hungry. Diddy would tell her, push through one more round. She said she began really protesting in 2023, but at that point, he was paying her rent. And she said he threatened it often, especially before hotel nights. The prosecutor then asked her, would you give back every dollar if it meant you didn't have to sleep with those other men? She said yes. Asked if she could remember the exact dates of every hotel night she had with Diddy, she said, no, I can't. When asked, do you wish you could? She said, I wish I could forget them. Asked if she would message entertainers after hotel nights, she said yes, and said, I didn't want them to feel used. I wanted them to feel good about it. Started sobbing, saying, on those nights with other men, I kept asking myself, why do I have to cross my own limits and still end up being treated so badly? Reminded the jury about the time where she threw up, and she said that Sean told me to go back out there and have relations with another man. They bring up the altercation that happened on June 18th of 2024 once again, where he had told her to perform on Anton, and she said he was cruel, he was evil. And asked if he was choking her with his hands or arms, she said arm, and then she showed the jury how it was done. She then confirmed the slap in the shower and how it was hard, and when asked who made her do things with Anton, she said Diddy. Asked if she wanted to, she said no. And lastly, when asked why are you here, she said I was subpoenaed. Teeny Garagos comes up for recross, and she asks, you drove to pick up Anton? You remember how she said she went to go grab him from the gate? You let him in? She said yes, but clarified it was as requested. She says to her, you could have left, and she said yes. Then tried to ask her, you lift heavy weights? And she says yes, but a woman's power does not override a man's. She then asked her, you hit Sean's head on the counter? Yes. And you had seen the Cassie Hotel video? Yes. Who referred Sly, the male entertainer, to another rapper in January of 2024? Yes. Were asked if you would give up money to not have relations with these men, but you wouldn't give up your home? And she said, my child and I live there. It's hard. You get $5,000 a month child support? Yes. Your child's father is a very rich man? Yes. Over the 3 years, didn't Diddy wire you $150K? And she responds, is that all 3 years of mine are worth? You believe you're worth more than $150K? That is such a rude question. She goes, does he? Then gets asked the most amount she's made on OF in a month, and she says $50K, but it varies. He then asks her, you'd say you were hungry to indicate you didn't want relations, right? Yes. Didn't Mr. Combs give you food? He knew what I meant. Did you tell Sly that relations with him had been great? Yes, but, and she gets cut off. You got Mr. Combs a mobile TV to show him videos of you having relations with entertainers? And she says, so I wouldn't have to have relations with other men. She gets asked, sometimes you watch the videos, no relations with other men? And she responds, all of it was ish. Judge then tells her, if you can, just answer the question. Asked what did she see when preparing for the trial? She said, my truth. Did you see records showing there were times you didn't have hotel nights? She says, lucky me. But there were such times, she says, thank God. She then gets asked how she felt about seeing Diddy's text message to Paul telling him to persuade her. And she said, how would it make you feel? That I've seen Sean's message to Paul, I guess it's likely I did have a hotel night. Teeny then asks her, so you're changing your testimony? She says, no. And Teeny says, no further questions. Prosecutor comes back up for redirect and says, what violence did Sean do to you before asking you to pick up Anton? It gets objected and overruled, but she says, he slapped me. This is where it officially ends. Jane Doe is done after being... Jane Doe is officially done with... Jane Doe is officially done with cross-examination, and they're about to start redirect. So...
I'm not a lawyer, and Kanye West isn't either, but apparently he showed up to day 23 of Diddy's federal criminal trial. It was right before lunch, and reporting says that he arrived in all white and wearing sunglasses and was directed to the overflow room. So he was not in the main courtroom where he would have been able to see Diddy. He's in another courtroom that's used once the main courtroom is full, and it has a monitor that's showing what's going on in the main courtroom. All right, now let's get into the day. Before the witness is brought out, the judge and the attorneys discuss an issue that was brought up yesterday regarding juror number 6. It appears that the government wants juror number 6 to be dismissed because of their lack of candor, meaning they weren't entirely truthful about where they lived. During jury selection, the juror lived in the Bronx, which means they were in the jurisdiction to be selected as a juror in this case. But in the last 2 weeks, they say that juror has moved out of the Bronx, and I'm assuming to an area that's not in the jurisdiction to allow them to be a juror for this case. And they found out about it because the juror was having some friendly conversation with a jury staff member, and that staff member then told the court. And so now the prosecutors want that juror dismissed, but the defense says they want that juror to stay. So the judge says he will address this issue towards the end of the day. And then prosecutors put some text messages into evidence, particularly a text that Diddy sent to his chief of staff, Christina Coram, about 5 days after Cassie's lawsuit was filed. And in this text, Diddy tells KK, quote, make sure Robin is not doing anything dumb, like not having that rent paid on time. Can you make sure she paid for this month, please? And then KK confirms, Robin said her rent was paid. And then the first witness of the day is called, and he is a Homeland Security agent named Andre Lamont, and he shows pictures of the raid on Diddy's Los Angeles home from March of 2024. The agent said they found envelopes marked with K, a brown bag that later tested positive for narcotics, 200 bottles of baby oil, 900 bottles of other lubricants, as well as firearms, magazines, and ammunition found near the security room of the house. And the agent notes that the serial number on one of the weapons was scratched off. There was also green tip ammunition that was found, which the agent testified is designed to go through body armor. On cross-examination, Diddy's defense attorney has the agent confirm that he's aware that a security team protects Diddy's home and that all of these firearms were recovered in the designated security room. No weapons or ammunition was found anywhere else outside of that security room, which the agent agrees to. The agent is then excused from the stand, and this is about when Kanye West arrived to the courthouse. And then prosecutors raise again the issue of Diddy allegedly nodding while his attorneys are asking questions. But Brian still tells the judge that Diddy did not and has not done anything wrong. The judge says there's some amount of reaction that is to be expected, and he also says that any attempt to influence the jury will not be tolerated. From there, one of Diddy's assistants, Jonathan Perez, comes to the stand to be given immunity. Around this time, Kanye leaves the courthouse. And then Perez begins testifying about the time period he served as Diddy's assistant from December 2021 until September of 2024. Perez says he worked between 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and made $85,000, but then was later moved up to $100,000. Perez also testified that he reported into Christina Coram, and she told him about King Nights, which he described as nights Diddy would go to a hotel to have private time with a woman. According to Perez, it was a part of his duties to set up and clean up King Nights, but because he worked the day shift, meaning 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., he only set up about 5 King Nights, and he would get anywhere from 2 hours to a full day's notice when one needed to be set up. Perez says that setup involved food, alcohol, music, red lights, protection, lubricant, and sometimes honey because it enhances a man's desire. Who knew? And then as far as cleanup, Perez testifies that the rooms would be messy and in disarray with sheets, towels, and oils everywhere. He says his job as cleanup was to make sure nothing was left behind, and then he would schedule an IV drop, a meal, and a massage for Diddy after these nights. Prosecutors also asked Perez about a time that a photographer found a video on one of Diddy's iPads at his house. Perez says it was at Diddy's LA home, and the video the videographer found was of Jane intimately engaging with another man while Diddy was in the background watching. It was on an iPad that the staff used and had access to, and so Perez told Diddy about this video, and according to him, Diddy seemed, quote, surprised. Perez says he also told KK about the video, and she told him that next time he should give the video directly to her, and she would be the one to handle Diddy. About 6 months after this incident, Perez says that KK called him and questioned him further about the video, because according to her, someone from outside the company knew about it. Perez didn't know at the time that KK was recording their conversation, but she was, and so that call was played for jurors. And after it's played, they go to lunch. I'll be back with...
The judge has officially decided that juror number 6 will be removed. Or did he? The judge had already brought in this juror to the roving room to question him, and he said during the break he looked at the transcripts from the roving room and he looked at transcripts from when they were selecting this juror. This is when the judge noticed inconsistencies about his living situation. Initially, he said he lived with his girlfriend who lives in New Jersey. And in the roving room, he said his daughter lived in New Jersey and he in the Bronx with his aunt. He had also told the court that he stays in the Bronx from 4 to 5 days a week. The judge goes on to say the court does not feel further inquiry is required. The reason we have alternate jurors is if questions arise. Where there's a question like this, removal of the juror is required. The juror will be dismissed. He should not return on Monday. Diddy's attorney pushed back, saying it's very common to have a girlfriend in New Jersey or vice versa. He should have been allowed to explain. Diddy's attorney goes on to say, I'm concerned that the court is equating inconsistencies with lying or hiding something from the court. If you bring him out here, we can come to some sort of understanding. He has come here every day. I've been in this court 25 or 30 years. There have been issues with representation of African American and Hispanic jurors in this district. We've taken a step with this jury. Now we're talking a step backward. Some say Black and Hispanic jurors don't answer the call. He did. Prosecutor responded saying that Diddy's attorney is suggesting this is about race, but the focus here is the integrity of the proceeding. The alternates have also been showing up on time. The judge then explains, in voir dire, he said, I live in the Bronx with my fiance and daughter. There's no reason to lie, but to try to get onto the jury. He goes on to say that he said he just moved to New Jersey, adding that his daughter had been living in New Jersey. He said, all my bills go to the Bronx. It's that he wanted to be on the jury. After the break, he says he actually spends more of his time in the Bronx, which is flat inconsistent with what he had previously said. The juror is shading answers to stay on the jury, which is why the right thing to do is to move to the alternate. There continues to be a back and forth, and then the judge told everybody to clear the room except for the attorneys. So at this point, we have no idea what's being said. The judge clearly made a decision, but Diddy's attorneys pushed back, and with no one there to report on it, we don't really know what's going to happen. Whether it gets announced today or Monday morning, I will let you guys know.
All right, first of all,
I wonder how these two women slept last night after hearing that they got another mention in Diddy's federal trial yet.
Day 23, June 13th of the Sean Diddy Combs trial had a lot of things going on. Kanye West showed up, there was evidence brought in, and there was a bombshell testimony. So I'm here to give you a recap and give you the scoop on what happened in the courtroom today. We're going to start with Kanye West showing up to show his support to Diddy. Outside of the Manhattan courthouse, Kanye West made a dramatic appearance, and he showed up in an all-white outfit to support his longtime friend Diddy. He showed up with Sean Diddy's son, Christian, but was never actually in the courtroom. Instead, he spent about 40 minutes in the overflow room. Inside the courtroom, prosecutors showed jaw-dropping evidence from a 2024 federal raid on Diddy's Los Angeles mansion. Homeland Security agent Andre Lamont testified as jurors were shown photos of what agents found, and it was wild. The evidence included firearms. There were 6 guns, including multiple rifles, a shotgun, and a pistol with its serial number scratched off. They also had drugs and phones, 6 small envelopes marked K that tested positive for ketamine, a bag of ecstasy, and 3 cell phones were found. And we have all heard about the infamous baby oil, which they showed as evidence. They found a large cooler filled with baby oil and an entire closet stocked with baby oil, as well as 18 boxes of lubricant, roughly around 900 bottles in total. While this evidence sounded sensational, Diddy's attorneys downplayed it, arguing nothing about having stashed guns or lubricant proves anything with what Diddy's being charged with. All of the firearms were kept secured in a locked security room, the defense noted, and one lawyer said that buying the oil and the lubricant in bulks is not a crime. The judge allowed Agent Lamont's testimony, but instructed prosecutors to clarify that there was no sign that the guns were stored in safely, making sure jurors focused on facts and not shock jurors. There was again drama over that same juror that we've heard in the past. Amid the testimony, courtroom drama flared over that one juror. Prosecutors revealed concerns that juror number 6, a 41-year-old corrections officer, might have lied about where. When originally questioned, he said the Bronx, but evidence suggests he might live in New Jersey. Diddy's lawyers fought hard to keep the juror. Tensions spiked in the courtroom over this whole thing, and the defense jury said that a diverse jury is a paramount of importance, while the judge shot down any implications of racial bias, saying that there was nothing to suggest any biased reason behind the inquiry. Diddy even waived his right to appeal over the issue, literally waving to the judge and agreeing not to contest it if it meant keeping that juror. Nevertheless, the judge said that the conflicting answers were serious and signaled he's likely to dismiss that juror to protect the trial's fairness. However, a decision wasn't made, and a final decision is expected in the next session. Highlight of day 23 came in the afternoon when former personal assistant Jonathan Perez took the stand. Perez worked closely with Diddy from late 2021 until Diddy's arrest in 2024, and he did not come to court willingly. He testified under subpoena and was granted immunity for any crimes he admits. His testimony was explosive and deeply revealing, pulling back the curtain of Diddy's private freak-off parties. Perez confirmed that part of his job was arranging and cleaning up after what Diddy and his inner circle called freak-offs. These were elaborate group sex parties involving Diddy's girlfriends and other men. Just to clarify, these are the same parties that Cassie Ventura dubbed as freak-offs, while the accuser, Jane, who was the most recent witness, she called them hotel nights, and the staff referred to them as king nights. Perez testified that when Diddy requested one of these nights, that the staff would have about 2 hours to prep a luxury hotel suite for an overnight marathon. They had to ensure that there was music, food, and the personal items were ready. After these sessions were over, Perez said the room would be left a mess. Lots of sheets and towels and oils everywhere. He and the other aides would discreetly clean up and then take care of the exhausted women. They'd order them a good meal, arrange a massage, or even hook her up to an IV to help her recover from the night. Perez did speak on a freak-off that followed a violent night that was actually mentioned in Jane's earlier testimony. In May 2023, Perez got an urgent message during one of Diddy and Jane's date nights gone wrong. Need $3,500 cash ASAP for his guest. I'm going to take it to her, he texted a colleague. The guest herself was Jane. Perez explained that night, Jane had accused Diddy of seeing another woman, leading to a vicious argument. In response, Diddy allegedly forced Jane into an impromptu freak-off with a male adult performer, even giving her an ecstasy pill and making her perform an act on the man against her will. Perez was instructed to deliver $3,500 in cash to Jane after this happened, which was effectively hush money after the encounter. His testimony backed up Jane's account of this horrifying incident. also spoke on Diddy's drug use and staff involvement. He admitted that on maybe a handful of occasions, he was tasked with the job of getting drugs for Diddy's parties. Perez would pay in cash using funds from Diddy's own stash, like money kept in a Gucci bag or a top drawer. He also testified that Diddy's go bag for freak-offs, which was a Gucci pouch he carried, was usually filled with cash and drugs. Despite the shocking duties, under cross-examination, he revealed that he never personally witnessed Diddy physically harm any woman or anyone in the 3 years that he was on the job. He told the jury that Jane, the ex-girlfriend accusing Diddy of abuse, always appeared willing during the freak-offs. He was asked, did she ever seem hesitant or unhappy? No, Perez replied. In fact, he said, Jane never complained to him about any of the arrangements. The only tension he noticed was Jane's jealousy over Diddy's other girlfriends. Perez did say that these tasks were far outside his normal job duties. On redirect, a prosecutor pressed him, were you a personal assistant or a business assistant? In which Perez confirmed he was a personal assistant. Perez testified that he felt great about Diddy when he resigned. He actually quit right after Diddy's arrest, saying that he wanted to avoid situations like this. Perez made it very clear that it was not his choice and he had not wanted to testify against Diddy in this trial. So as court wrapped up on day 23, it was said that Diddy was seen slumped at the defense table, head in his hands, a sign that the trial is taking its toll on him. The session ended with a tense debate over which text messages and emails would be allowed as evidence, which is telling us there's more drama to come in this case. On Monday,
But talk really quick. Yo, my sources were right. Ye has entered the courtroom. He waved. He said hello to me. Ye is in the courtroom. Now, we are on break. He came in just before lunch break. Nobody knows. You guys have the exclusive.
It is Friday, day 23 in the Diddy trial, and apparently Kanye came to show his support. So first, the judge went over the issue with the juror that they had discussed about removing. The judge says the issue could be about where the juror lives. Earlier this week, the government had said the juror should be removed over lack of candor. The judge says, my preference would be to hear from the juror, and it's likely we will hear a perfect, innocent explanation. Adding he wants to quickly resolve the issue and put it to bed. The defense said they want to limit the testimony about the guns found in Sean's home. Mark Ignifilo called the firearms a divisive issue, and he'd rather not have it on the minds of jurors. I am not seeing how guns in a security room are relevant to any of the charges in this case. Government called their first witness, Homeland Security Investigations Agent Andre Lamont, to the stand, and he is to discuss the details of Sean's arrest last year. Testifying that federal agents found 900 bottles of Astroglide and 200 bottles of baby oil. In a nightstand, agents also found 6 envelopes marked with K on them. Lamont said those envelopes tested positive for ketamine. And obviously they're allowing the testimony about the guns because the agents said that they found long guns, AR-15 style weapons, Smith & Wesson rifles, Ruger rifles, Glock pistols, among other firearms that were discovered at the home. Agents also found 59 rounds of green tip ammunition, which is manufactured to penetrate body armor. The hell does he need that for? Apparently, at one point, prosecutors complained to the judge about Sean nodding his head. Now, we know he got in trouble last week for making faces at jurors, so he better chill out before he gets thrown out. And around 11:30 today is when Kanye showed up, and he did say to a reporter that he was there to support Sean. Now, they said Kanye was there for 40 minutes in the courthouse, but never made it into the actual courtroom. Next to take the stand was Jonathan Perez, a former personal assistant to Sean. He worked for Sean from December 2021 until this past September. He said he addressed his boss by several names: Diddy, P. Diddy, and Mr. C. Love. The assistant said that the staff had to prepare for what they knew as King Nights. This is when the boss would spend Time in a hotel with a woman. Staff had 2 to 24 hours to prepare for king nights. Food, change of clothes, condoms, lubricants, and red lights were among the items commonly packed. Former assistants said cleanup after king nights was a mess and disarray, a lot of sheets, towels, and oil. His main purpose of cleanup was to make sure no items were left behind. The former assistant testified that Sean and his guests would be tired when he saw them after a king night. They then showed the jury text messages that Perez, the former assistant, sent to Sean and Jane August 12, 2023, involving information about a hotel room, saying, just left 2 candles and a room phone in front of room door. I'm only 9 minutes away if y'all need anything. The jury was also shown text messages between Sean and Chief of Staff Christina Karam, Perez, and another assistant about setting up a hotel room. In another conversation seen in court from May 2023, Karam had asked an assistant how cleanup was going. The assistant said, slipped and fell twice. He recalled a time at Sean's Los Angeles home where a videographer found a video of Jane and another man engaging in sexual activity. He said the video was on an iPad usually used by Sean's staff. He took the iPad and told Sean and Christina Karam, Chief of Staff, separately about the video that day. He said that Sean seemed surprised when he told him about the video. Karam told Perez that next time he should give the footage directly to her and she'd deal with Sean. They then let the jury hear a recording of a conversation with Christina Karam and Perez, the assistant, that he says he didn't know was being recorded about this video. At this point, they break for lunch. I'll post this afternoon's recap at the end of
I'm not a lawyer, but let's get into what happened after lunch on day 23 of Diddy's federal criminal trial. So Jonathan Perez, Diddy's former assistant, was back on the stand, and his testimony picks up with him describing times that he would get narcotics for Diddy. Perez says that he interacted with someone named Guido, as well as a baby girl, in order to pick up the narcotics, and that Diddy had a Gucci bag where he carried around cash and narcotics. Prosecutors then jumped to the night of June 18, 2024, which again is the night of the physical altercation Jane says she had with Diddy at her house. And Jonathan testifies that he dropped some items off at Jane's house for her to set up the night, and then he later dropped Diddy off at her house. According to Perez, a few hours after he dropped Diddy off, Diddy FaceTimed him seemingly angry and annoyed and asked him to confirm if Diddy had been with a woman during his Utah family trip. Jonathan said he replied no, and then Diddy hung up. It's worth mentioning that Jane also included this part of the story when she was on the stand talking about this night. Prosecutors then showed the jurors messages Perez sent to KK and Diddy security guard Fahim around this same time. In the message, he says, quote, heads up, him and guest are fighting. I'm about to head back and pick him up. In that text, Perez also included that Diddy wanted him to bring cash. And then prosecutors show a separate message that included Diddy, Fahim, and Perez, in which Perez said, quote, need $3,500 ASAP for his guest. I'm going to take it to her being Jane. Moving on to when Perez stopped working for Diddy, he said that in September of 2024, which is the same month Diddy was arrested, he stopped working there because, quote, there was a lot going on personally for Mr. Combs, and there wasn't a lot of communication about what was happening, so I thought it was a good time to leave to hopefully avoid a situation like this. Perez also noted that the last time he spoke to Diddy was the day he was arrested. And when asked how he feels about Diddy today, Perez said, quote, feel great about him, the same way I felt when I was leaving my employment. From there, Diddy's defense attorney, Brian Steele, gets up to do cross, and he asked Perez if some of the things he did for Diddy felt like they were more personal tasks than work tasks, and Perez agreed. He said setting up king nights and purchasing narcotics both felt like things that would be classified as personal tasks versus work-related tasks, and he doesn't believe that he was getting paid to do those things. But he also says that only about 1% of his time were spent on personal things. And then Brian Steele asked Perez about his interactions with Jane. Perez said that at times he would help Jane pick out lingerie, heels, and dresses, and she never appeared hesitant to go to a King's Night with Diddy. Perez confirms that Jane seemed like a, quote, willing participant in King's Nights, and she never seemed upset or unhappy after them. Next up, Brian Steele shows messages between Jane and Perez of them planning for King's Nights and making sure things like underwear and other items were packed. After being asked, Perez also confirmed he doesn't know if the items he purchased for Diddy's personal activities were paid with Diddy's company funds or personal funds. And from there, the prosecutor gets up to do a brief redirect, and she asks Perez if his title was personal assistant or business assistant, to which Perez says personal assistant, and his duties also included things like writing cards and buying gifts and flowers for Diddy's girlfriends. From there, the jurors are dismissed for the day, and the judge and lawyers stay back to have more discussions about juror number 6. The judge says that he believes the juror has been inconsistent in answering the question of where he lives, and he notes that during jury selection, the juror said he lives with his fiance and his daughter in the Bronx, but earlier this week when they asked him where he lived, he said he recently moved in with a woman in New Jersey, but also stays with his aunt in the Bronx about 4 to 5 nights a week. According to the judge, the changing answers and inconsistency with him gives the judge worry and concern that he's lying and trying to make an effort to stay on the jury. Diddy's defense team argues that dismissing this juror, who is a person of color, will result in the diversity of the jury being shortened, but the judge says that the evidence of this juror having a personal agenda to stay on the jury, particularly when he told the judge that he still has a New York license and that his bills go to a New York address, so he should therefore still be eligible to be a juror, makes the judge concerned, but he's going to think about it a little more over the weekend and decide next week. So that's day 23. Y'all have a good weekend and don't have no freak offs with anyone who doesn't want to have a freak off with you.
Now, who shows up at the Diddy case? A famous celebrity showed up and thought that was going to let him in the courtroom because of his status. Who, child, who do y'all think this person is? Let's get into it. Week 5, the last day of week 5, day 23, Diddy case. Let's go. Remember a couple days ago, I told y'all that the prosecution actually was thinking of asking to eliminate juror number 6. Juror number 6 is a 41-year-old correctional officer who is from the Bronx. So they felt like him and Diddy would be exchanging eye contact, sometimes nodding to each other. So the prosecution felt like he could probably cause this case to be a hung jury. But the judge is saying, no, he just wants to talk to the juror based on his addresses that he had listed. So the defense is coming back. It's like, well, if that's
Y'all hit the like and subscribe button. Follow me. We're all caught up, so follow me for more updates on the Diddy trial for this week coming up.